Hi everyone, it's Mary from Joyful and Mary Quilting. We have Carl Johnson here. He's from Sharper Decatur and he sharpens our scissors for us. And I cannot tell you how many times we have people that have emailed me and asked me all about sharpening, and I don't know anything about it other than I know that Carl has sharpened all my stuff and he does a great job. So when I give them to him, they're not very sharp, and when I get them back, they are perfect. But the questions that people have asked, I think, are really important. Some of these are questions that someone has asked me, and others are just things that I thought up on my own. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below, and we will do our best to answer those as well. I am at Make a Blanket Day. If you're not familiar with that, this is Project Linus, and every year in the winter time, usually, it's spring right now, but in the winter time, we usually have a celebration where we make blankets all day and celebrate Project Linus, which is a nonprofit organization. And you can hear the background noise because we are at Make a Blanket Day and everyone is making blankets. But one of the highlights that we have Carl Johnson here, and he sharpens our scissors for us. Thanks for being here, Carl.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. It's so much fun. Like I say, Carl's been here for years and he does this, so we just kind of take him for granted. But I'm going to ask some questions that I never asked him other than, leaving off my scissors. So first of all, the biggest question that we have is, what are the biggest mistakes that people make that dull their scissors prematurely? What do they do? What do we do that we shouldn't be doing with our scissors? And I know you can tell me.
Number one is going to be cutting a pin or a needle.
Oh, really?
If you accidentally have a needle or a pin in your fabric and cut over it, you're going to nick the scissors because they're hard.
Okay.
Cutting paper is probably not the worst thing you can do. I don't recommend you go cut reams of paper with your scissors, but it's not the worst.
We've seen a little bit of what you're doing when you're sharpening, but what is it that you do? I mean, tell us in a nutshell, what is it that you do to sharpen? It's the blades, and do you sharpen two sides? I mean, what do you do?
I sharpen both sides of the blade. Scissors generally are around 100 degrees. Brands vary what degree they use for proprietary purposes, I'm sure. So there's a little bit of variation. I sharpen both sides and oil the blade and will clean it or something if I need to. And I always test on a piece of fleece and a piece of cotton, make sure that they're working properly.
Okay.
You can tighten them up. Sometimes if there's a screw, you have the ability to do that. Not all scissors can be tightened. So that's generally the process. I use a grinding wheel that's water cooled, and there's 3 or 4 different systems you can use. This is just the one that I have, and I think they all probably work equally well. So you find whatever the angle is on the pair of scissors. You try and match the angle as close as you can and grind one side, and then I take them out of the jig and I grind the other side, and then I use a piece of ceramic to cut the burr off of the back, because every time you grind or sharpen something, you get a little wire edge burr on there, and you can just wipe it off with a piece of ceramic, which is essentially what one of those rods that people have in their kitchen, a hone. That's really what you're doing there, is you're straightening the edge up and cutting off a burr if there is one with one of those. So I take the burr off the back side of the scissors, and then I try and put them back together if I have to. Some scissors come apart, some don't. And then cut on a piece of fabric and make sure that they're working properly.
Okay, well, so that takes me to my next question, which is, there are people that, many of us who have tried to sharpen our own scissors, right? We've ruined them.
Right.
When we try and do it, it seems like it doesn't always work right. What is your recommendation? Because there are all kinds of things out there that say, oh, use this and it will sharpen your scissors, or use a ruler that has a sharpener on the side of it, which I've tried and they fall off. But what do you say to people when they say, oh, I can do it myself?
Well, you can use those things. If used properly, a lot of them probably work well. But are you holding it at the right angle? Are you matching up the angle? A pair of Fiskars is different than a pair of Gingers, which is different than a pair of Weiss scissors, which is different than every other kind of scissors that you can come up with. So what's that angle set for in the sharpener? You don't know. With this, I can match the angle, whether, from one brand to the other or whatever. So you're really probably better off, unless you really know what you're doing, taking them to somebody who's a professional scissor sharpener.
Well, and it's really reasonably
or knows what they're
priced.
doing. Right.
Yeah, because I think that's what people don't always realize is it is reasonably priced. It is much more cost efficient to pay you to sharpen my scissors than for me to ruin my scissors and then go buy a new pair. And then a lot of times, when we do that and then we try again, we don't have good luck.
Right.
It's so much better to search out someone that knows what they're doing and to do it, which is why we.
And if you have a nick or something in the scissors, you're not going to get that out.
No, we won't.
Just give that up.
But we don't. A lot of times everybody's always wanting to save $1, and I don't blame anyone for that. But I think this is saving $1.
Sure.
And this is not.
You're
what they
better off
realize.
taking them to somebody that knows what they're doing and has the equipment to do it than, like you said, you're spending money on some kind of gimmicky sharpener, and then maybe you ruin a $50 pair of scissors.
Which you can. And
which
they are $50.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, you're better off paying $8, $10 or whatever and just have them sharpened.
And so worth it. And, and I've extended, I think I've had my scissors, I don't know how many years, and they are like brand new. And it's because we've kept, I've been able to keep up with that. Okay, now here's some myths and rumors that I know you've heard. But one thing is, I had somebody just recently say to me, she didn't ask me, she just said, oh, the way that I sharpen my scissors is I take tin foil, I wad it up, and I just cut it into a bunch of little pieces, and it sharpens my scissors.
Yeah. That's not going to work. You might get some improved results once or twice, but aluminum is softer than steel.
Okay.
Most of your scissors are some form of steel. So cutting aluminum is not going to make steel sharper because it just can't do it.
Okay.
So it may get you, 1 or 2 cuts better, but it's not really going to last. It's not going to be a lasting job.
That's what I thought, but I didn't know for sure.
Right.
But everybody tries again, the gimmicks, like you say. Okay, some people also say that when you cut through the selvage, that thicker area of the fabric, that sharpens your scissors, and that's why we do that.
I wouldn't think so. I would think it would probably dull your scissors more because you have more material there you're cutting through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Similar to, cutting a piece of canvas or something like that.
Well, it's kind of like that because that is very thick there. One of the things we're going to talk about is hair scissors. Hair scissors, as Carl has told me, are not the same sharpening process as our quilting scissors, but tell us why, Carl.
Right. Human hair and facial hair, if you're shaving or whatever, is the same hardness as the equivalent size piece of copper wire. So it's very hard, even though you don't think of it as being hard or stiff.
I would have
or
never thought that.
Anything like that. And it does dull your scissors. So, I would not use my fiskars to trim somebody's hair.
This is one thing that, can a scissor ever be too sharp? Do you have a happy medium where you have to start?
Yeah, scissors are not generally super sharp.
Okay.
They're not, if we were comparing it to kitchen knives. You sharpen a paring knife to a sharper point than you do a cleaver.
Okay.
Because you're chopping with it.
Sure.
So you want a heavier, thicker edge on a cleaver than you do on a paring knife or a fillet knife.
You do that, yeah.
So on scissors, you want, generally you want kind of a rougher edge because the scissors have to have something to grab a hold of to cut.
Okay.
So that's what works. So, scissors are not sharpened to a super fine edge.
It's a science, really.
Right.
You're talking geometry here. We talk all sorts of things here. It is a science that we don't realize we take this into the real world.
Right.
From when we learn how to do it. One person asked, is it different to sharpen left-handed scissors as compared to right-handed scissors?
They sharpen the exact same way. They're just reversed.
So you have to.
So I have to sharpen both sides anyway. So I'm basically doing the opposite procedure on the same side.
Okay. It's not that different.
Yeah, it's not really. There's no procedural difference other than the opposite operation, or cut the opposite direction.
Okay. We're going to have this question, Carl. Rotary blades. What can you tell us? Because of course there are all these rotary blade sharpeners, and actually I did a video on it, and they did not work very well.
Right.
But they're expensive. People want to know, can you sharpen rotary blades?
There is a process to sharpen rotary blades. It's very expensive to buy the machine or the tooling to set up, like for me to do that.
Okay.
So rotary blades are really not worth the time and effort it takes to sharpen one, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I would just buy rotary blades. When people ask me about them, I suggest go on Amazon or eBay and look for the 10 packs of rotary blades. You can buy them $2.50 a piece or something like that. You know, $25, $30. You can buy 10 Olfa rotary blades. I've used Japanese import ones, and they work just as well as the ones I've bought, you know, in a store here stateside. They tend to be a little cheaper, but the packaging will all be written in Japanese. It says they're Olfa, which I think is a Japanese company.
It is.
So I've had good luck with those, but for $2.50, you know, my mom does have a rotary blade sharpener. I looked it up last night. It was about $55 today to buy that thing.
Oh, wow.
And it will get you, you know, a little better edge for a while. It's not going to last forever. But, you know.
I know there's cheap ones out there.
Right.
So those probably aren't worth it. It sounds like your mom has a good
Yeah, she's got a little, you plug it in, you flip the blade over a couple times. It's got a little sharpening stone in it. It works fairly well. It'll take a nick out of your rotary blade if you get one in there, and you know, you can extend the life of it a little bit.
That's good to know.
But you know, it's also $55, and you can buy 10 more blades for less than that.
Yeah, a lot.
So that's what my advice is if, you know, people ask about rotary blades.
Okay.
So.
Well, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, now another thing that people ask about, I have Ginger scissors. I paid a lot of money. I don't remember what, but it was a long time ago, but they've lasted forever.
Right.
I've also had Fisker scissors. I've had all different brands. I mean, I've bought different ones. Those are my go-tos, but do you find that there is a brand that you would recommend more than any other, or ones that work better?
Ginger, Fiskars, Weiss makes good scissors. Generally, they're more industrial type scissors. You get large, like dressmaker scissors. The Firestone plant that used to be here in town had 55-gallon buckets of them that they sold off.
Oh, wow.
And they had their own sharpener in-house, and they just resharpen the Weiss scissors. So those are all pretty good. If I was going to buy a pair of scissors, if they're yellow and you really like yellow, or they got flowers on them, I would probably steer clear.
I have a
I mean, everybody's got a couple pair of, you know, scissors. I bought them because they were cute.
Yeah.
The better brands, you're buying better quality steel.
Okay.
Is really what it comes down to. You know, they're going to be harder. They're going to stay sharp longer. They're going to retain an edge better. Just like buying a set of kitchen knives.
Well, I know you've sharpened my Fiskars before, and they work better, I think, than they did when they were brand new. So we've done those, and we've done the Gingers. I don't have the Weiss brand, but I do have the other two, and I couldn't be happier with the life I've gotten out of those. You know, just from the sharpening.
But if you're looking at a pair of $9.95 scissors and you think they're great looking, they go with my outfit or whatever. I'm into daisies and that's what's on them. I'd probably steer clear of those.
Okay.
But you probably really need to view your scissors. They're a tool.
Sure.
They're going to be used every day. You're probably getting a more comfortable handle because they're spending money on engineering and ergonomics, as well as the quality of the metal going into them.
Okay.
So they're going to be more comfortable to use if you buy a, you know, big name brand of scissors. There's probably some good store brands out there that are probably equally good, maybe a couple dollars less, but you are getting what you pay for when you buy Weiss or Fiskars or Gingers.
Well, and especially the ergonomic part is important, especially to a lot of people who have issues with wrist or hand or whatever. That's huge. So is there one that if someone really does hand issues that you have seen that works well?
Fiskars has several different shapes of handles.
Okay.
Some of them just are straight handled scissors. That's what my mom typically uses today because her thumb has started to curve where she's stuck her thumb through the thumb hole of scissors for years and years and years. So a lot of times I notice she's switched to a straighter handle or a longer curved handle rather than a traditional stuff your thumb through at an angle pair of scissors. So, you know, those are options that are available. Like I said, I know Fiskars make several different handle shapes. A lot of times in the store you can hold on to the handles, or sometimes, like I know at Joann's, they had 3 or 4 different pair, or they had a box of scissors under the cutting table. So if you wanted to know how they felt or something like that, you could probably just ask somebody at a store.
That's a great idea, especially if you went to a quilting store or whatever. You could find someone that would give you a recommendation based on what they've used, because they do a lot of cutting. So I never thought to go there and just ask, and then you could purchase. A lot of times the ones that are in the package you can't get into to see, but you know, you see which ones they're using, and then you know. That's a great idea.
So those are my recommendations on brands of scissors. And like I said, I know Fiskars makes some. I don't know if Ginger makes different handle shapes or not. I would assume they probably do, somewhat at least.
I haven't looked, but that's a good point. Yeah. So a stainless steel as compared to titanium, is that something that we would watch out for?
The titanium coating is just a coating that they put on. Titanium's a lot harder than the steel underneath it. It is going to make your scissors probably last a little longer.
Okay.
Maybe retain a little edge. The first time you take them to someone to sharpen them, that titanium coating is gone because you're going to grind. It's going to get ground off.
Okay.
But you might get a longer period of time before you have to take them to someone to get them sharpened.
Okay.
That's the titanium edge coat, or titanium nitride, or whatever
that name is it's going around a lot right now. You hear titanium everything, and everybody's always talking about it. So that's really good to know. Food for thought.
But
wow.
The scissors are not made of titanium.
Okay.
It's just a coating that they put on the edge, and that's why it's usually a gold.
No, did we?
Usually a gold color or something on the pair of scissors.
Right.
But once I get done with them, that titanium coating's gone.
Okay.
Microns thick.
Okay.
But it probably does help.
Actually, I met Carl through his mom. His mom worked at Joann's, which we're sorry that Joann's, your mom Karen, was always very helpful and always someone there to give us advice and help us with our quilting questions and whatever. And then we got Carl to come in and sharpen our scissors. So we have the best of all worlds here. We still have you to be able to help us out here. We will miss your mom for sure when it comes to her work at Joann's, but we all know what happened there. We're not going to talk about it. But anyway, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming every single time, and I thank you for sharing this with us, because I'm sure you all agree we've been very enlightened by this conversation, and I hope that helps us to not only take our scissors and take better care of them, but to maintain them like we should, make your job a little bit easier too. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me
here. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has. Thanks.
Right. I really have enjoyed this time, and like I said, there are so many questions that we may have that we don't take the time to ask. I have had a list of people asking me questions about scissor sharpening. I've compiled that list, and I hope that Carl's been able to answer those questions for you. If you do have more questions, please put them in the comments, and we'll do a follow-up video so that we can answer those questions for you as well, because I know they are out there and we may not have been able to cover everything. But it makes me very happy and very joyful to be here at Make a Blanket Day, to be able to serve as we do the children of our community, and to also have good tools to use in the process. So I am always trying to be joyful, but I will always be merry. Thank you so much for joining me today.